how-to versus what it has become and why I continue doing it are two very different things. When I moved to London from Sydney, Australia, I was faced with a very different job market and application process. There were two things that were very different for me. The first is that almost all jobs in London go through recruiters. In Sydney, it's a mix, but it's very common to apply directly to a company, and you can certainly get jobs without ever registering with recruiters. The second was that recruiters and employers were finding my experience running my own business really interesting and valuable. This was exciting because in Sydney, I found that culturally not a lot of value was placed on that experience. Also, I have a double degree in teaching and arts and often wouldn't get an interview in Sydney because my degree wasn't related to business. But in the UK, this didn't matter at all, and lots of value was placed on my degree even though it was in teaching. So there were cultural differences to application processes, employer attitudes and expectations. When I was applying for roles, there was a common problem I was coming up against. I would get right to the end of the process for some really great jobs, and the feedback would be, we really liked her, but we're concerned she's going to want to run her own business and won't stay with us as an assistant. The very thing that was getting me in the door was also preventing me from going further. Now, this feedback, it wasn't true. I wanted to be an assistant. I really wanted to be an assistant. When I discovered the EA world, I finally felt like I found my thing. I didn't want to run my own business full time, but I did still have a relatively popular YouTube channel and an app in the App Store because both of those things were profitable. They were what allowed me to travel and to move to the UK without a job. They were my hobby, my passion project, and also demonstrated skills I have, so there were multiple good reasons for keeping them. On the other hand, it meant when anyone Googled me, I appeared as a business owner, a YouTuber, an app creator, but never an assistant. I always kept my day job separate from this online presence that I had built for myself, and that had worked for me in many ways. But now, again, it was kind of working against me. I thought about what I could do to get around this, and channeled my inner Madonna, and I decided I needed a rebrand. I began crafting a professional brand as an executive assistant. I began by starting the EA How-To YouTube channel, starting with what I knew, and the goal was to create a brand for myself that was completely separate to my business, something centered entirely on being an executive assistant. This is really important because it wasn't lack of opportunities that was holding me back. It was all in the way I was selling myself. I didn't have a skills problem. I had a marketing problem. And it is easier than it has ever been to create a personal brand for yourself. We have access to everything we need to do that on our phones. I needed to sell all of my previous experiences as someone who had worked on cruise ships, in government, as a nanny, a PA, my travel industry experience, and experience as a business owner. And I needed to package it in a way that sold me as a great executive assistant. Because every single one of those roles that I had previously gave me the skills to be a great EA. I knew that. Working in the travel industry turned me into an absolute travel booking ninja. Dealing with government policies, legislation, and customers is amazing preparation for being an EA. And I think we all know how working as a nanny applies to being an EA. But you need to be careful how you sell that. Point being, we all have transferable skills. And now more than ever, companies are looking at what additional value you can add. And this is why I highly recommend finding, developing, and marketing your niche as an assistant. Maybe you have a knack for design and can chip in with design help when needed. Maybe you're a photographer who can help with brand photography, or you've had a successful blog for many years and you can market your copywriting skills with that. Some of you will be able to assist with finance or HR. Others will bring facilities skills or social media marketing expertise. This is about finding the right place for you, the right people for you, and crafting a brand that speaks to those people. And then, of course, defining your place within the organization. I'd like you to imagine for a moment, I'm in an interview situation right now, and I'm asked to describe my previous experience and how it applies to being EA to the CEO. I could say, well, I worked in the travel industry and it was mostly booking travel for families, which isn't the same as booking business travel, I know, but it still applies. And I've dealt with lots of policies when I worked in government, and of course I've also been a PA, so there's that. And this would be a clearly terrible way to sell my skills. Another way of putting it would be to say, my experience as an international travel consultant has turned me into an absolute travel booking ninja. I needed to be on top of the travel arrangements for dozens of clients every month while also hitting and exceeding my KPIs. I needed to be extremely organised to be able to assist all of my clients, not only with their bookings, but with inevitable changes, delays, cancellations, and insurance issues. As for being a nanny, if I can successfully wrangle twin toddlers through airports and long-haul flights, I can basically do anything. Of course, also working with government policies and legislation requires meticulous accuracy and attention to detail. I also dealt with everyone from government employees and politicians to architects, developers, and the general public. So I really needed to excel at explaining complex legislation to people with different levels of understanding. So you can see that there are very different ways you can market your experience. As part of my rebrand, I sold myself as someone who is knowledgeable in the EA space and as someone with a knack for YouTube. I was creating content for the EA How To YouTube channel, and that was going to help me when a potential employer Googled me. Next came LinkedIn, then the private Facebook group for assistants only, followed by eahowto.com, and most recently the Gin Lounge, our premium membership for one-on-one assistance and deep dives, among other things. Not only had I managed to craft a brand for myself as an executive assistant, but I had turned it into a brand dedicated to helping other assistants. So, what are some practical things you can do to market your existing skills? You can use the portfolio feature on LinkedIn, upload samples of your work, develop your professional voice on social media, connect with your EA community, build a professional network, and in doing this, you'll be staying on top of trends and technology. You're going to make connections, which will lead to introductions, and you're going to get really, really good at that skill so many of us, particularly women, really struggle with: talking ourselves up, selling ourselves. The good news about this is EAs are some of the most resourceful people you will ever meet. We have lots of knowledge about how the business we're part of runs. We have good working relationships with key stakeholders. We have a knack for picking things up quickly and being incredibly organised. We need to be able to sell these qualities and demonstrate our value because now, more than ever, your value proposition is what is going to determine your future as an EA. This has been so clearly demonstrated by many EAs throughout this pandemic. Since March, lots of EAs have had to temporarily move into other parts of the business in order to keep their job. My usual role at TruePhone suddenly became very quiet. There were lots of days where I had plenty of free time, whatever that means. So I got my hands dirty in other parts of the business. I helped the marketing and communications teams and made myself available to teams that could use the help. I started the TruePhone YouTube channel and also created a series of internal company videos recorded via Zoom. Our events manager suddenly switched to communications and put her comms experience to use. And these kinds of changes have been happening in businesses everywhere this year. The most employable assistants at this time are those who have skills that can be used in other parts of the business, transferable skills. And I want to be really clear here. You don't need to be an expert. You can be an amateur photographer who is still learning, and you can do a refresh of the company headshots. Maybe you're on LinkedIn Learning doing a Photoshop course, and you're learning enough to be able to help with some of the marketing materials. It could be that you're brilliant with processes and can help other teams improve their workflow. The bottom line is assistants need to be able to adapt to change, of course, but I know so many of you already have skills that aren't being utilized because you lack confidence in your abilities. You feel like you need to be an expert before you speak up and offer your skills, or you don't know how to sell yourself to the right people. And what I really want you to know is that your skills are incredibly valuable and necessary. Building my professional profile and network as an EA has opened a lot of doors for me. Within weeks of starting this EA How-To passion project, I landed the exact job I wanted as EA to the CEO of TruePhone. I'm still there now. And one of my roles at TruePhone, as I said, is creating internal and external video content for the company, using those skills I taught myself while building YouTube channels in my role as an EA. And this is something I really love about being an EA. I have the best of both worlds in that I get to work largely autonomously in a senior role that really makes use of my entrepreneurial spirit, but I don't have the entire weight of a company on my shoulders alone. So in less than 12 months, I went from struggling to get the kind of EA role I wanted in London, being incredibly undervalued by recruiters who were convincing me to apply for roles offering less than half of what I was aiming for, and having no online presence as an EA, and certainly no LinkedIn presence, to landing the exact role I wanted as an EA, and growing EA How-To into a global community of assistants, which now has over 20,000 members and a premium monthly membership. Excuse me. Now, it's really important to note here that there are plenty of employers who aren't interested in hiring me, because I haven't put in 5 years at KPMG. And that's fine. That's not the place for me. I'm not marketing myself to those employers. I'm marketing myself to employers that value diverse experience, creativity, and an entrepreneurial spirit, and I'm doing it with confidence. If you are the assistant with loads of stability on your CV and ample corporate experience, then market yourself to those employers and forget about the ones who want to know why you haven't moved around more and done a wider variety of things. Be proud of the experience you have and confidently market your skills. You need to know your audience and speak to them in everything you do. On LinkedIn, on your CV, in your cover letter, during your interviews, at networking events, and anywhere else you have a presence. You can do this by refining your elevator pitch, getting involved in conversations on LinkedIn, creating content on LinkedIn, write articles and start conversations. Apply for a variety of positions to get experience and gain confidence interviewing. And connect with your fellow assistant community. EA How-To is all about assistants providing support for one another. So, I know some of you might be in the very early phase of your career and wondering how you can do all of this. And it's actually relatively easy. First of all, get experience by offering to help on projects, covering for an EA when they're on leave, offering to make use of a skill you already have, showing initiative, and just getting really, really good at the basics. You need to be taking every opportunity you can to demonstrate the value you bring to the company, because no one else is going to do this for you. You basically need to brute force your way to being seen. And one of the most common stepping stones to becoming an EA that I've seen is to start on reception and do all of those things I just mentioned. So, in wrapping up, let's take a quick look at some of the lessons we can all take away from this. Number 1, don't let a recruiter define your worth. The information you're being given by a recruiter generally says more about the kinds of roles they're recruiting for than your actual market value. Number 2, Find and develop your niche. Something you're passionate about, something you enjoy, something that could be useful to your potential employers. Number 3, understand the value of your existing skills. And number 4, market yourself in the right way to the right people. I really hope if you take nothing else away from this session, you leave with a better understanding of the value you bring to the business as an EA. And if you're trying to transition into a career as an EA, then audit the skills you already have and find a way to market those skills to potential employers. Before I go, I wanted to say thanks for attending my session today by offering you a free SMART goal setting session from EA How To, as well as 20% off any other paid EA How To content using code BASECONF. Of course, please do go ahead and connect with me. The easiest way to find links is to visit eahowto.com. From there, you'll find links to EA How To on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and the Gin Lounge. And you can subscribe to our mailing list to stay up to date with all things EA How To. Thanks so much, guys.